Parshas Emor. V'yomer Hashem el Moshe, Emor el HaKohanim b'nei Aaron. Say to the Kohanim who are b'nei Aaron. You could be a Ben Aaron and you're not a Cohen, correct? Let's say a person is a cholo. Person is an issue of a grusha. A person is a Cohen, marries a grusha, a divorcee, which he's not permitted to. The child is not a Cohen. The child's a cholo, meaning he's a desecrated child. His kuna has been profaned, and therefore he's not a Cohen, but he's still a Ben Aaron. Only the person who's the Cohen Ben Aaron, the Cohen who's qualified to officiate as a Cohen, only he himself, we'll see in a moment, and you should say unto them, nefesh lo yitam ba'amov, that they are not permitted to contaminate themselves ba'amov. We'll see what the word ba'amov, within their community. What is this? Emor al kohanim, emor v'amarto. What's this reiteration? You should say, and then again v'amarto. It should say, emor al kohanim, nefesh lo yitama, what's v'amarto aleim? Lahazir gedol maktanim. That even a person's a minor, the adult is responsible to make sure that the minor does not contaminate himself. B'nei Aaron, what is B'nei Aaron? If the B'nei Yochel Chalolim, maybe a person who's a son of Aaron, even a Cholol, even if he's not qualified to officiate. When I say not qualified to officiate, I'm not saying being a Baal Mum. Person is blemished, he's permitted to eat kochim. He's permitted to eat truma. He's still called a Cohen. He doesn't qualify to officiate, but truma and eating kochim, sacrificial meat, which a non-Cohen is not permitted to eat, he does eat. A cholol, he means he has no kedushas kuna. He doesn't have the sanctity of a Cohen. B'nei Aaron, avbali mumin b'mashma. B'nei Aaron, v'lo b'nos Aaron. B'nei Aaron, what about a woman who's the daughter of a Cohen? Although the daughter of a Cohen, before she marries a non-Cohen, she's permitted to eat truma. Nevertheless, she's permitted to contaminate herself. The laws of contamination only apply to the gender that has relevance to officiating. Since the woman cannot officiate, therefore, although she does eat truma when she's a single woman, the daughter of a Cohen, but nevertheless, she's permitted to contaminate. Lo yitam ba'amov. If the corpse is still within the community, which means another Jew could attend to the needs, the burial needs of that person, then the Kohen is not permitted to contaminate. Yotza mes mitzvah. What about a person who's a mes mitzvah? Meaning, as the Gemara says, that you come upon the corpse of a Jew and you call out, is anyone here to attend to the burial needs of that person? And nobody responds, and the person lies in disgrace. So the Torah says that becomes an overriding factor that the Kohen is permitted to compromise his kuna and to contaminate himself. But under no other circumstance is he permitted to what? To contaminate himself. However, there are exceptions. Kim l'sheira korav elov. What about to his wife? Meaning the one who's closest to him. Meaning the one he's connected flesh-wise to her. Ein sheira l'ishto, Rashi says, cites the Chazal. Li'imo l'oviv, to his mother, to his father, the mother. The Gemara tells us, from where do we learn the laws of Rov, that you go after probability? So the Gemara says in Chulin, we learn it from Maka Aviv Imo Moshumos. If a person goes and he hits his father and he causes a wound, it's punished by the death penalty. So the Gemara says, that a person is the child of a woman, we know, because that's a fact. Because the witnesses that he was born from this woman. But how do we know that a child is the child of his father? Maybe his mother conceived from another man. The answer is, since we say Rov Bilas Acharabal, that the presumption is that a woman only is intimate with her husband, not with another person, only cohabits with her own husband. As a result of that, the probability is that this child was conceived from the father. So the Gemara says that's the source of Holcham Acharov, that you go after majority even to take one's life, because the person is subject to the death penalty when the Torah says if he should hit his father or mother. So Le'imo is understood. To his mother, Torah says he's permitted to contaminate. What about to his father? His father, which is not a fact based on factually, it's his father, it's only based on a law of Rov. Maybe not. No, Torah says no. Laviv. He contaminates to his mother and to his father. Livno Levito. To his son and to his daughter. Ul'ochiv. Let's see Rashi. Hakrova. Larabos is Harusa. It comes to include that even if she's married, but not fully married, meaning the marriage has been consummated, although she's connected to another man, he still can contaminate her. That the Torah says she's related, but because the marriage wasn't consummated yet, lo yitama mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to contaminate her. It's a known fact. It's known to Vilna Gaon, because of his level of purity, the Vilna Gaon came upon many things, which, as it says in the sixth parak in Pirkei Avos, that if a person studies at a special level, studies Torah Lishma, God reveals to him many secrets, which humanly, through even one's toil, one cannot come upon. But because of the quality of investment of the Torah, quality of the mitzvah, the Shema, God reveals secrets to him. The inner secrets of the Torah. It was known the Vilna Gaon came upon things, and as I mentioned the other day, the Vilna Gaon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to send a malach to study with him as he sent to the Beis Yosef, to Rav Yosef Karo. And he asked in this dream that if it's something he come upon through his own toil, then he doesn't want the malach. And Hashem says, whatever the malach could teach you, if you toil sufficiently and you qualitatively you invest your life in it, you will come upon it on your own, through your own initiative. He rejected the malach. The Vilna Gaon did not want the malach to come to teach him anything. The Vilna Gaon never allowed himself to contaminate himself to the dead, because he felt that since the impurity of death is something which is contrary to Kedusha, as we know that a person is contaminated, he's not permitted to enter into the Beis HaMikdash, he's not permitted to eat sacrificial meat, a Cohen's not permitted to eat Truma, whatever it is. Therefore, it's a compromise. One is compromising his spirituality. The Vilna never would attend a funeral to contaminate himself. But when his parents passed away, he followed the procession, the remains of his father, and he put his hands directly over the body to contaminate himself. Of course, as it says here, mitzvah letamos, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to them. The 7 relatives, when they pass away, there's a mitzvah to become contaminated. So the Vilna Gaon, because it's a mitzvah, regardless of what the consequences or the ramification is, the Vilna Gaon contaminated himself. There's a famous story. There was a dibuk. There was this forlorn soul. Talmud Chofetz Chaim. Chofetz Chaim was a Cohen, and it had gone. A famous story went into a young girl who was 10 years old, and would not leave her body. And they brought this girl who, with this forlorn soul, went into her body to try to somehow force the soul to leave the body. And how do we know about the story about the Chofetz Chaim? Because the Chofetz Chaim had a kollel he established. It was called Kollel Kodshim. They studied the section of Shas which had to do with studying the sacrifices. Kodshim, that section of Shas. And because he was a Kohen, and he felt that if the Beis Mikdash will be built, and people are not proficient in the laws of the service of the Beis Hamikdash, it'll be a disgrace. And that's one of the reasons why Hashem is not bringing Mashiach, because he brings Mashiach, and the Kohanim are not learned sufficiently, and they can't even be instructed by others how to officiate. So how do you bring korbanos? How do you bring sacrifices? Therefore, he established Kol Kochim, and who is one of the members of this kollel? Rebbe Chana Wasserman, Zechat Tzadik Levrocha. Rebbe Chana was one of them. All exceptional Talmidei Chacham, Torah sages were part of this kollel. Every Purim, Rebbe Chana Wasserman would tell over the story about how the Vilna Gaon exercised the soul from this girl. That's how we know the story about the Chofetz Chaim and this forlorn soul in this girl. So there was a similar story that in Vilna, time of the Vilna Gaon, a forlorn soul went into a girl also. And it's known that because of the soul is so not qualified, not even to go to Gehenna. It's forlorn. It's not admitted into Gehenna. It's not admitted into Gan Eden, to neither. The level of vulgarity of the soul when it goes into the child or the person, it speaks vulgarities not to be believed. And whenever the soul speaks from the child or the person, the voice does not come out of the mouth; it comes out of the stomach. That's one of the indicators that it's a dibuk, and it's not the person speaking. It's a dibuk. So this person, this forlorn soul, went into a girl in Vilna, and also a soul being not a human being, not within a body, it knows things about people. And people were afraid to even be exposed to the child, because whenever anybody would go near, immediately the soul would say things that were private, secrets about the person's life that were embarrassing, besides the vulgarities. So they felt they're going to take this child with this forlorn soul to the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon never left his courtyard for 40 years. He was only involved with his inner circle of Talmidim for 40 years. And the Vilna Gaon hears like a ruckus in the courtyard. Noise, screaming, a tumult. And the Vilna Gaon goes and looks out, opens up the shade to look out through the shade. The moment the Dibuk sensed the Vilna Gaon was looking at him, the Dibuk became petrified. It started to scream. It couldn't tolerate the Kedusha of the Vilna Gaon. I'm just showing you what the Gaon was. A Gaon, normally he would not allow himself to be contaminated to the dead. However, because as it says here, there's mitzvah letamos, there's a mitzvah to contaminate to the 7 relatives, to a parent. So when his parents passed away, to guarantee, make sure he was contaminated, he put his hands over his parents' bodies, that the contamination rises, so he would definitely be contaminated on the Torah level without a question. We had explained, the Medrash says that because the Cohen enters into the sanctuary and officiates, a person who's contaminated, Hashem says, I don't want you to come to my courtyard and contaminate my courtyard. So the Cohen, who it's his responsibility to officiate, carrying this level of contamination, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. However, we make an exception for the 7 relatives, he's permitted. So if there's a famous word from the Sefarno, what exactly is the function of the Cohen vis-a-vis Klal Yisrael? So there's a pasuk in Malachi, the pasuk says, Sifsei Cohen Yishmru Das, Yivaksh Torah Vipiu. The lips of the Cohen are the keepers of the faith, and therefore you should seek out Torah from his mouth, Kimalach Hashem Tzvosu, because he's compared to an angel. So who is the model of the disseminator of Torah? The Cohen. If the Cohen himself would contaminate himself to anyone, he'd be seen in a certain light, and this would diminish his specialness. And as a result of his status, and his revered status would be compromised, attending funerals of any person, and they don't see his sanctity as being something out of the ordinary, people will not be receptive to his teachings. And since the Cohen's function and value is that, therefore the Torah says only his 7 closest relatives, because that's family. Family, the Torah allows him to contaminate. To others, because he's a special status, Hashem says no, he's not permitted. He's too holy. Being put in that context of holiness, people will see him in an elevated, revered status. Therefore, the teachings of the Cohen will be valued. This is the reason why the Torah does not allow the Cohen hedging to contaminate to others, but to his family, they do. The Torah does.